You know that thing that you and I want? The better job, the better skill, the better life, the better business. Every single thing that we can think of in today's day and age that we want is on the other side of this one thing. I'm Misbah, by the way, if this is our first time crossing paths. In 2016, my first podcast got me my dream job, coaching Fortune 1000 executives and professional athletes. I've also produced shows with over 1 million downloads, and now I write and talk about high agency thinking and skill acquisition on my podcast and newsletter called Habit Chess, which, by the way, you can grab in the description below. So anyway, I've been thinking about this concept deeply. All the things that we might want in today's day and age are not really limited by information or limited by resources, as much as it may seem, right? When Google came out, we had the whole world at our fingertips. And because of that information, we technically should be able to be the fittest people on earth, right? Everyone should be walking around right now in shape, wealthy, and happy. But in the years to come, we quickly learned that more information was not the solution. Even though every single thing that we may want to know in service of our goals is accessible. It just needs to be looked up. And any gap that we experience, which was like having to go through 3 different articles or 5 different pages on Google before you could find the right thing, those gaps are shrinking, right? Now, with LLMs and AI in the years to come, the cost to build is going to be very cheap. The cost to look up what we want, to learn what we want, it will no longer be something that you need to pay $100,000 a year for and be in a specific building for these 4 years or these 6 years so that you can get the certification that you now know about this thing and you can apply it to what you want. As that gap completely erodes, and now you have access to all the information, you have access to all the tools. The excuse that we may have had of, okay, we have information, but we don't quite have maybe the cash or we don't have the time yet, right? The things that are being built in the years to come are opening up space for that kind of stuff. So then that begs the question, what is the limiter, right? If every tool is accessible to us, the limiter becomes short-term embarrassment. This is the thing that if you can master, if you can get yourself to be okay, be comfortable experiencing this, you will be ahead of 99% of the field. Because what we are experiencing with the internet right now, in my opinion, is the internet is going through puberty, right? We started out really caring what other people think, how we look, how we're perceived, how many followers we have, right? All of these superficial things that did matter for a little bit and maybe did help certain people achieve their outcomes and their goals. But what else was born out of that social media culture was this extreme fear of missing out and fear of other people's opinions. So I do think there's years and years of this type of conditioning that has now gotten most of us to be like, whoa, okay, if we want to start a new business, if we want to learn a new skill, if we want to share something, make a post about something that we don't normally make a post about, right? Our reptile brain immediately kicks in and is, wait, no, you're going to be laughed at, you're going to be judged, you're going to be banished, you might get canceled. That feeling of looking stupid, of blushing, of regret, of, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? All of those fears are at an all-time high. And I can assure you that this is true because I am a consultant for a living and I get to talk to people day in and day out who are trying to do things like launching a podcast, starting YouTube channels, doing things that you'd go, okay, wow, there's a lot of harder things that you've done. Clearly, you've overcome crazy obstacles. You're an executive at this crazy company. You're a professional athlete, right? But when it comes to actually pressing play on some of these things, the limiter is not often some of these technical things like, oh, what mic should I use? What camera should I use? It very quickly becomes, oh, I'm afraid of how I'm going to look. I'm afraid of how I'm going to sound. I'm afraid of being perceived. And this is crazy because I know people who have literally 300,000 followers, over 500,000 followers on Instagram, who still deal with these fears. It didn't just go away once they achieved that. In anything else that they're doing, it's almost like that success actually brought an increase. I don't want to go anywhere near that embarrassment because, of course, who likes to feel that, right? I did stand-up comedy for 4 years. And I mainly did it as a way to get over a lot of fears of mine, figure out how to sound more like myself and, get out of my head a little bit. And along the way, I got addicted to the laughs and I kept going and, would bomb 10 times just to experience the 11th time where laughs would hit you in your chest and bounce off of it. Like it was the craziest feeling, right? But even me doing that privately, right? Without telling any of my friends or family or coworkers, oh, okay, I'm doing stand up, to go up there on stage and take a risk of trying to make somebody laugh, right? And it not working, it actually maybe backfiring and people not laughing, right? That's a lot of embarrassment, right? And that embarrassment is often what I got to experience over and over along with my peers, right? We become numb to that embarrassment to some extent. But also, the thing that actually keeps comedians going, you would think, oh, they don't get embarrassed at all. It's actually the fear of experiencing that, right? So I don't want to experience that kind of embarrassment ever again. So I'm going to make sure that this next joke, this next set, I'm going to be the best that I can because I don't ever want to experience that bomb again. And I share that with you to say that experiencing the short-term embarrassment can actually benefit you in a couple ways. One, if you're the type of person like me who doesn't like to feel it, and most people are probably like that, it makes your brain think in so many different ways as to, okay, how can I avoid that? Instead of going, okay, I'm just not going to do it at all, you begin to go, okay, how can I minimize that? How can I reduce my risk for short-term embarrassment? And in the case of stand-up comedy, okay, you can write off stage. You can really hone your stuff and put time off stage before you go on stage and actually do your set. So there are things you can do to minimize that risk. But at the end of the day, there is still 5%, 10% chance of that embarrassment that might happen, right? That is just something that comes with the territory, not just with stand-up comedy, but with almost everything else that we want to do, right? Even applying to, let's say, a new job. You being able to take the risk of going, oh man, I might be rejected, or, I might be embarrassed if I don't even get a reply. People's fear of experiencing that emotion is so high right now that I think anybody who is willing to sit in that mucky, uncomfortable feeling for 10 seconds at a time, 10 minutes at a time, 10 days at a time, 10 months at a time. If you are willing to put yourself in that kind of a position, that is what I found is the season ticket pass to everything else you want. It is the thing that equips you with the skill. People look at you and go, man, how is that person doing it? How is that person so happy? How are they so peaceful? How are they so healthy? It's because, okay, if that person was really overweight and had to go to the gym and now it's because they had to force themselves to sit with that embarrassment. Let's take somebody who is overweight. I spent 10 years in the fitness coaching world, got to work with clients in over 14 countries, professional athletes, all sorts of cool stuff, right? So if I had some client who was really overweight and they were afraid to even go to the gym, so it's, yeah, you need to go to the gym to fix this problem maybe, but you're afraid to even go there because of what? I'm afraid what people will think of me. I'm afraid of looking dumb, not knowing enough, ashamed of how I am now and missing and grieving what I used to be. Those fears and those challenges are actually some of the toughest things that client might deal with, rather than actually doing the 10-minute bike or the 10 reps of presses or squats or whatever it might be. That stuff isn't really that difficult once you can get somebody over the mental hump of, okay, I'm accepting myself full well knowing that I'm embarrassing myself right now. And the people that I got to see who were comfortable with that are the ones that succeeded. They are the ones that in whatever it is that they were going after, whether it was losing the weight and looking a certain way, achieving something in their career, building relationships, a family, whatever it might be, in any sector of life, there was this crazy vulnerable moment where they had to face short-term embarrassment directly in the eye and go, all right, this is worth it. This is worth the embarrassment that could come from it, and I'm willing to accept it. And it doesn't just mean that, okay, you're doomed now and you are going to experience all of this crazy embarrassment. I often find that once you accept it, it actually does reduce the feelings of embarrassment as you're going through it. It doesn't eliminate it completely, right? But it does lower our resistance and our guard down to a point where we can actually make a move, because most people I find are paralyzed by this, right? Paralysis analysis is real. And as I mentioned in my consulting practice, just getting to see certain clients a few years ago who didn't become clients, right? But they were about to, and they couldn't get over maybe that embarrassment. Many of them are still stuck in the same position that they were, and it's been 3 years, 5 years, and it's imagine how far their show could have gone in that time frame. That's exactly the time you would have needed to make something happen. But because of the 10 seconds, the initial 10 seconds of discomfort, right? Or the inevitable 10 months of discomfort that we can't even imagine ourselves making it through because we can't make it through the 10 seconds. That is the real bicep curls for the mind, right? That's like how you begin to train your mind in 2025 and beyond to stay ahead of the game. Not just your game, but to be in your own world and to separate yourself from the rest of the pack, right? To be able to not let judgment, perception, shame, embarrassment get in the way of what you want, living the life that you want. It's easier said than done. Trust me, I have experienced embarrassment over and over and over in every sector of life that you can think of. But it's also why I feel very happy and proud of my life and what I've built in every arena, because if I didn't experience that short-term embarrassment, there's just no chance that I would have any of the things that I do today, because that risk is often what we are paid for, are rewarded for, that gives us meaning, right? It's the uncertainty of, oh, this might not work out, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? It's like the tuba player who has committed their life to playing the tuba. You're like, wow, that means you had to say no to everything else, right? That's what Steve Jobs would say is focus, right? How many things have you said no to? You had to say no to the violin. You had to say no to the piano. You might have had to say no to a lot of money. You might have had to say no to a million other things just so you could say yes to this, right? And at a certain point, that is what we respect about people who do the things that they do. It's, wow, you had to say no to everything else so you could do this, right? And that shows that you care about this clearly if you did that. And saying no to everything else is actually a source of short-term embarrassment, right? So you wanting to, let's say, be on Instagram, but also growing on YouTube, right? For me personally, like, I stopped posting on Instagram for a couple weeks. My business grew. I was allowed to focus more on YouTube. I was able to be like, I saw crazy progress in just the 2-3 weeks that I isolated my focus and was able to double down on YouTube for some of my other channels. And I wrestled with I'm feeling the pain of not business-wise or not in any other way, feeling like missing out on Instagram, right? So what's crazy about this is that if you can master those feelings, the 10-second, the 10-month is a great continuum to be able to go, okay, where can I sit with this thing that I want to go after, right? Let's say it's starting a podcast or something. Okay, if I want to start a podcast, can I experience the 10 seconds of embarrassment? Can I withstand that for this? Yes. Okay. 10 months. Can I do that? For a lot of people, it might go, no, like, I don't know, I got to make it through the 10 days first, right? But at least now your brain begins to go, okay, what am I embarrassed about? What am I afraid of going wrong? And as I think about this and as I view this through the lens of every sector, every arena of life, every high performer that I admire, living or dead, they all were rewarded for taking the risk and experiencing the embarrassment, right? They were willing to maybe fall flat on their face in front of everybody. And that's partly why they're experiencing the success that they are. It's not because they were perfect, right? That might be how it appears on the surface is, oh, wow, they really figured it out. But guess what? Most people had to go through that intense period of embarrassment. Even if it was behind the scenes, you didn't get to see it or feel it. People have to experience that. People have to manage what's in between their ears, just like me and you do. And quite frankly, I'm grateful everything I want is on the other side of short-term embarrassment. Because once you get used to those feelings, like I think that's the one thing stand-up comedy did for me in those 4 years was like, I did get used to being embarrassed regularly, right? Being completely like this, Mom, I just gotta go with it. I gotta do my best. I gotta let go of even that heavy feeling, that judgment of, oh, I'm gonna be embarrassed. Because if you don't, you can't really be yourself on stage. You can't fully relax. You can't be in the moment because you're constantly trying to do the opposite. You're trying to avoid embarrassment. So I hope this made something click for you, where if you can sit there for the 10 seconds or the 10 months and experience that short-term embarrassment, how cool is it that you are ahead of 90% of people? 90% of the playing field is not going to be able to compete with you because of this one simple fact. They can't sit through the short-term embarrassment. They can't feel that for 10 seconds, let alone 10 months. And so I see this as a skill that is worth being exposed to in very little ways, right? The rejection that I got to experience and feel with stand-up comedy in night after night for years, I think did shape things in me. Like, yes, I failed. It was embarrassing to be like, I'm stopping stand-up comedy. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm prioritizing other things. Sure, there's a little bit of embarrassment there. Okay, I failed. But it is crazy. Once I accepted that, I was able to actually appreciate, whoa, all these other skills that it gave me that I can now apply to my new world and my existing world. I didn't have this before. And that's not to say that you need to go do stand-up comedy in order to get comfortable with rejection. But what I am saying is, what situations can you put yourself in to begin to expose yourself to the short-term embarrassment, and do it in ways that aren't going to completely backfire and make you never try this again. Like, you don't want to scar yourself with something so extreme that you crushed it and now it's long-term embarrassment. And to me, the safest way to do this is writing. So when you can write something, it's between you and the page. There's nobody else that's consuming it unless you intend them to. There's no one else consuming it. And it allows you to take risks in a very low stakes way. You're not even having to speak this out loud. Nobody's hearing you say this. Your friends, family, coworker, boss, nobody's going to hear it. Nobody's going to see it. It's a risk that you're taking between you and the page, right? It may be as simple as acknowledging the fear that is there, right? That you just aren't able to do because it's like you're so avoidant of the embarrassment that not going to even go near figuring out what or why that is. But writing jokes for me was a huge offstage work habit. It was an opportunity for me to take 10 different attempts in a way that doing 10 different sets to experience that on stage, right, would have been maybe too traumatic for me. I would not be willing to take some of the risks for the level of embarrassment that might happen. But on the page, I was willing to, because, okay, cool. I can work through 10 of these, and then maybe 3 of these are worth trying in the next set that I do, or the next 3 performances that I do. Okay, I can whittle it down to maybe 1 that works here. So writing is a practice that I find that you can use to really expose yourself and minimize the short-term embarrassment to a degree that is tolerable. You can experience it. It's a dosage that you can take in. And although this is something that in some arenas, it is most effective in that arena, right? I still experience embarrassment. I'm not immune to it just because I did stand up for 4 years, but I do find that it does transfer over, right? There is some carryover. I am 10, 20, 30% more likely to be comfortable with the 10 seconds or 10 months of embarrassment, right? I've been through it so many times that I know the drill. It comes with the territory of some of the things that I might want to do. And I think that's the part that no one takes the time to acknowledge in these YouTube videos and social media posts on Twitter. It's like nobody actually wants to get into, this is the one limiter. This is the one skill. This is the one emotion that we're all avoiding that happens to be the gateway to everything else we want. So I hope this was useful. Drop a comment, let me know what you think, and make sure to sign up for the Habit Chest newsletter in the description below. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you on the next one.